Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's segment right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. I am your show host, Megan Young Gamble. And if you have been rocking with us on listening to our podcast on all of our streaming platforms, as well as the video that is published on YouTube, I thank you so much for rocking with us and welcome back to the house. If this is your first time here with me, welcome to the house. I'm so honored and privileged that you are here joining us for these conversations where we're giving real insights, real data, and real conversations with no fluff around what it takes for the creation, development, and launch of products and packaging in the marketplace. So that way you are properly positioned to know what you should be doing, some of the things that are coming down the pipeline, and a lot of changes in this industry. Because at the end of the day, we as consumers, we consume a lot of products, and a lot of them are readily available in various platforms, various websites, various mass retailers, and more. And there's a behind the scenes team that's helping to push these efforts. So, when you listen to the powerhouses that are here joining me for these conversations, it is very intentional. It's very authentic conversations that we have. And so as part of that, we're going to have an authentic conversation for today. And in 2025, here in the US, we're already going through some, how I want to say it, we're already on rocky ground. That's the best way to put it. And so for this one, I'm going to be talking about, some of the things we're seeing in reference of DE&I. Let me just preface this. I am not going to be discussing politics. I am not discussing which side I am on, any of that, but I'm going to be offering some perspective, from my end as a consultant that works with product-based businesses, what I'm seeing in reference of the companies that are anti-DE&I versus those companies that are DE&I, some of the things people are saying on the internet, and some final thoughts, from my perspective too. And so, like I said, I'm not going to be discussing politics. This is not the platform for that. There's countless other platforms you can go to, voice your opinions, type whatever you want to behind the computer in reference of where you stand, your philosophies, your thoughts, your opinions, whatever. This is not the platform, but this is to really think about what is the impact, from a product-based business to a consultant like myself with my company GLC, Packaging and Project Execution Team for beauty brands, how we are positioning ourselves, in this new year, how we want to become the leading beauty operations firm, accelerating prestige and sustainable products in packaging to market in the various countries, by end of 2026, so there's a lot of things at play. And so I wanted to just really come on and be very authentic and just have this raw conversation, around what I'm seeing in this space, and also what are things we can do in this space, as we're going through and having this rocky ground as well. So before we get into today's content, make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe to the platforms on your respective channels. And we also love some love as well. So to help continue and support the efforts of the podcast, I always say, please give me a 5-star rating in all of the episodes that you listen to on our respective platform, because those ratings mean a lot to us. It helps with the analytics that we're looking at behind the scenes, looking to assess the topics in the conversations, of the people that I have the opportunity to speak with, around the various business sectors. So all of those things matter. So I appreciate you all taking the time to really be present with us, to listen to this conversation, to share this with your network, and to give us some love with 5-star ratings. Okay, so here in America, USA, we're having this conversation here within Q1, in reference of a lot of companies that are pulling back their DE&I initiatives. So if you're not familiar with the acronym DEI, it is diversity, equity, and inclusion, which is really a culmination of anybody that identifies Black, people of color, minority owned, woman owned, even if you LGBTQIA plus, anybody that is part of a marginalized group is really part of the DE&I conversation, that umbrella. And so now with us having new presidential administration in office, a lot of companies have started to reassess their own initiatives due to this mandate to stop DE&I or to adjust the language around the companies and organizations' DE&I initiatives. And so as part of that, we have some mass retailers that are now anti-DE&I based upon this new mandate. And we have some mass retailers that are still encouraging and promoting and highlighting their DE&I initiatives despite of the mandate. So I'm going to be offering some perspective from both ends, and then what we could be doing as consumers as well, and then some final thoughts from my end as a consultant working with product-based businesses as well. So let's talk about some of the companies that are currently anti-DE&I. So as of a lot of things have gone into effect with the new presidential administration, like I mentioned. And so with some of the companies that are now anti-DE&I I'm going to just highlight just a few. This is not all, but just a few, because these companies are really in the space that I operate in as a beauty consultant. So before I get into the companies, let me just highlight what I do through my company to add some context. So at my company, GLC, Get Level Consulting, we really partner with intentional, prestige, and sustainable companies and brands to help them launch their products into the marketplace. Our emphasis and really our area of genius is really around some core areas. So first is packaging, strategy, and development. So we partner with these companies to help ensure that they have the right strategy, understanding their go-to-market strategy, countries, things of that sort. And we also help with the development of the packaging respectfully for beauty brands. We do not work with all industries. Our main bread and butter is really around beauty space. And so that is where we really position ourselves, to align those efforts around packaging strategy and development. Secondly, is we also serve as packaging artwork specialists. So we understand the nuances of getting all the information on the packaging to be compliant for the different markets. And so we have regulatory that's part of our team. We partner, and we're really an extension of the brands that we work with to help ensure that we're thinking through efficient ways of routing product label packaging from primary, secondary, tertiary, any level of packaging to ensure that all the information is compliant. It has captured the right print specifications so it can be optimized for printing when it does go into production with the manufacturers. And then also thinking about what is the change control process, because regulations change, some of the information change, you may have a product ingredient change, whatever the case may be. So what does that process look like? So we're thinking through, forward thinking about the next step as well. And then last but not least, I've been a project manager by trade for the past almost 15 years now. And so project management is really the belly and the foundation of the practice here at GLC. So we actually serve as your project management and portfolio management team as well. So if you have multiple products that you're launching, that's part of the portfolio. And then we have project managers that help support those efforts depending upon the different stages your brand and your products may be in. And then we also have, we can do anything from just one product all the way up to a whole collection of products and portfolio of products that may be launching for various seasons. So that's where I would serve as a portfolio manager, assessing and understanding the strategy with the companies, and then having my project management team to help support the respective projects based upon which products are launching in the season, and helping to encompass the packaging artwork, the strategy, the development, go-to-market strategy, etc. So that's high level, the context of my company, GLC. And if you need support, we can definitely help support you. The link down below does allow you the opportunity to schedule a one-on-one with me for us to have a conversation to see how it's mutually beneficial for us to partner together for your respective brand. So that's about me. And so the reason that this DE&I conversation is so important, and the companies I'm going to be talking about that are anti-DE&I versus the companies that are still promoting their DE&I initiatives, is because a lot of the brands we work with are launching in mass market or big box stores here in the US and expanding into international countries. And so with that being shared, I have to be very strategic of what's the approach and the strategy? How do we, tackle this? And with these conversations now being had, around these companies that may have removed their DEI initiatives, what are some things that we need to be looking at? So that's really the purpose of this podcast, is to just share some perspective from my end as a consultant, what I'm seeing in reference of the landscape for the beauty industry and packaging, and what we could do as we're moving forward. So let's highlight a couple of companies that are now anti-DE&I with some of their initiatives that they have removed. So in the US, most of our major retailers or big box brands that we work with and that a lot of brands that we partner with want to launch into are Target, Walmart, Amazon. These are the top three that a lot of my brands really want to position their products into. And these three retailers have now pulled their DE&I initiatives. And so as part of that, a lot of people, are now saying, well, you need to move your products and things of that sort. And so before you can do any of that, I just want to really say a lot of brands that are wanting to go into these retailers have thought through very meticulously what that strategy looks like, how that can be advantageous for their respective brand, how this brand awareness and the shelf placement, even if it's online for these retailers like Amazon. Amazon does not have a storefront. They are strictly online. But the awareness that they can gain, that brands can gain from being on these platforms, with Target online, Walmart online, Amazon for sure, it is a full strategy. And a lot of times these companies that are taking the time, the effort, the blood, sweat, and tears to go into these mass retailers and big box brands, it's taken almost 2 years to do so. When you think about open call to even pitch your brand, to some of the revisions that the companies may be making for your brand, how you are, what is your unique value proposition, how do you stand out on shelf against the other competitors and brands that are already there, your competitive advantage for the products that you're offering, so what is the competitive analysis that you've done, in reference of it, where is the industry going, depending upon which category you're in. So beauty, for example, is very general, and it's like the umbrella of the category. But underneath that umbrella, you have the support, right? Like the metal parts that support the underside of the umbrella. And so I look at the underside or the supports being nail care, hair care, skin care, body care, scalp care, SPF, etc. Those are the support anchors under the umbrella of beauty. And so when you look at that and assess that, it's a lot that goes into play. And then you have to think about the requirements that the retailers, Target, Walmart, Amazon, respectfully have around the products, the ingredient portion versus the packaging, because every retailer may not have the same requirements. And so you have to understand and think through the strategy very meticulously around this. And these brands are doing so much work, a lot of sleepless nights, a lot of tears, behind the scenes to get in front of these companies, because they're looking at the opportunity for exponential growth that is outside of just their direct to consumer website. And then on top of that, we just heard recent reports from YSL, who is a retail strategist, that did a recent webinar that says Amazon is considered the number one beauty destination, that has surpassed Sephora and Ulta. So Amazon is now the number one beauty destination because of the quick accessibility, Prime. I have so many packages coming in at the time of this recording because I'm expecting my baby girl coming to join the team. So Amazon has expanded its offering so much where you are going to get your products in 2 days or less. And there's so much research. There's so many ways that they do comparison of their products and everything. Now, there's still some challenges, in reference of beauty brands getting into the space, but with these retailers, brands are thinking about how it can be advantageous to their company for potential exponential growth. And so to see some of these companies pull back their DE&I initiatives, at the end of the day, you have to do what makes sense. And I'm saying that more so from like a brand standpoint. There's a lot of things that brands have to think about, when they want to get placement in these stores. And now with some of these stores now being anti-DE&I, pulling back some of their initiatives, some of the brands may be reassessing where they stand, so it's a big conversation around that and such. And so as I've shared, some of the major mass market retailers, big box brands that are anti-DE&I, I want to share companies that have kept their DE&I initiatives. So some of these companies, like I said, I'm really highlighting the brands that really focus on my sector of the business, which is beauty. And so some of these companies is Sephora, Costco, Macy's, Nordstrom, and TJ Maxx. So as I mentioned, Amazon, who is now pull their DE&I initiatives, is considered the number one beauty destination. The second beauty destination is Sephora, who has still kept their DE&I initiatives in place. And so one thing that they also have done is they have recently launched a documentary called Beauty and Belonging that recently launched on January 27th to really highlight, the brands and the employees that work within the company to really showcase how beauty has evolved, all the people that are intricate and instrumental to create the brands from beginning to end. I talked about sales open calls and stuff like that. Sephora has an open call, during a certain time of the year to accept new brands to see if it will be advantageous for the brands to be in the stores, and what that looks like. So, they're talking about, they have everybody part of the process. And so I'm actually going to be watching this documentary myself to see to understand the conversation and also how they're encouraging and really merging how beauty and diversity or belonging as part of their title really intersect and how some of those conversations are driven and why Sephora is keeping those initiatives. Secondly, Sephora has been one of those top retailers that has really encouraged and highlighted Black and minority owned brands. And so they've always joined forces, with 15% pledge to help with getting more shelf placement and more recognition, specifically around Black owned brands to be featured in these mass market retailers. So Sephora is still continuing their DE&I initiatives. Some of the other companies, Costco is said that they are not going to stop it. I have a Costco membership, and because it's closer to me than Sam's Club, but as part of that, I have brands that are wanting to go into Costco, so there's a lot of brands who also want to go in Sephora, go in Costco, go into Nordstrom, all the retailers that I mentioned that are still having their DE&I initiatives, and so as part of that, there's strategy around all of these retailers, so having other retailers like Macy's and Nordstrom and TJ Maxx that really have top beauty sections and such, like Nordstrom has a really great recycling partnership with Loop Cycle and TerraCycle, depending upon the area you're in, where you can drop off your empty beauty product packaging items so they can be properly recycled, so there's a lot of different initiatives that are really advantageous within beauty and packaging at these retailer spaces, and we're still seeing them keep their DE&I initiatives. And then we also have e.l.f., Eyes, Lips, and Face. The company CEO has stated that they are not going to follow suit to the DE&I mandate due to the new presidential administration. They're going to continue to support their DE&I initiatives and the things that they do and the efforts as well. And so when you have this, I would call it like almost like a tug of war, where you have some companies that are anti-DE&I and you have some companies that are for DE&I still, despite of the mandate. It's a tug of war, and a lot of people are like, well, what should I do? And so a lot of things that we're seeing respectfully on the internet, in reference to what people are saying is, well, if they're anti-DNI, we should just boycott them. Okay. Let me offer some perspective on that these are my opinion. These are my own opinions. This is not sponsored, none of that. Like I said, this is a very authentic, very raw conversation. That is the point of my podcast, and I'm very unapologetic about it. So boycotting these stores, I understand why people feel as such and feel that way, and feel that that would help promote action, positive action. But I personally believe it will not be positive action. It would actually have a negative impact on the brands that do fall under DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion initiative. I believe that this will hurt those brands more than boycotting the stores for a couple of reasons. So first, when I mentioned like the companies that are anti-DEI, the top that I mentioned, Amazon, Target, and Walmart, top 3. Now, Dollar General, I'm not included in this because I have not really seen or heard reports about them, but I know Dollar General does have a big supplier initiative. They have big DE&I initiatives as well. So they are not included in this. But for the 3 that I mentioned, Amazon, Target, and Walmart, these 3 mass market retailers are readily available to majority of us in the USA. And I want you to think about, where do you go to purchase household goods? Where do you go to purchase your groceries? Where do you go to purchase medication for you or your child or your family? Where do you go to purchase some of those items that are considered splurge items, things that you just want because you just want to have them? Majority of us are going to Walmart, Target or Target, or ordering it from Amazon. So if you boycott these 3, think about where you're going to go to get those items that I mentioned to you. Okay. So if you say you're not going to Walmart and you're going to go to Sam's Club, that is owned by Walmart. So then where are you going to go to get your tissue, your paper towels, basic household essentials, clothing, basic clothing, not name brand, basic clothing for your respective needs. So boycotting may not be the answer. However, what I personally believe could be the temporary solution is, if you don't want to patronize the store as a whole and get everything from there, first craft a plan to know which retailers in your market and which organizations in your market align with your own values and beliefs, things of that sort. But then secondly, if you do go to these stores or shop online, Walmart, Target, Amazon, be intentional to support these brands. And I'm really going to be highlighting Black-owned brands because I am a Black-owned brand. Black-owned, self-funded, female-run, operated brand. Okay. And I'm a service provider. So I don't have a product, but I'm a service provider. So I still am part of this group. So, but specifically for product-based businesses, if you're going to go there and if you don't want to patronize a store, please support these brands that are currently in the store, because a lot of these brands have worked hard to be there. A lot of them still have products shipping to these stores, to Amazon fulfillment centers. Support these brands because some of them are still under contracts. And if they do not hit the quota, and if they do not fulfill their contractual agreement with these retailers, that gives more ammunition to these retailers to say, you are not performing, you have not hit the quota. We can, looking at our purchase order history, we see that the sales have gone down because, over a specified period of time, and we needed to hit X number of units to sell in the store and or online. So boycotting may not be the answer. You just have to be very strategic of how you move and still support these brands, because at the end of the day, they are still working. They are still paying for shelf space. Because a lot of y'all, if you do not know, when you are in store, you pay for shelf space. They still have purchase orders that are out. They are still trying to make sure that they are getting paid based upon their net terms. Some of the retailers are paying 90 to 120 days. So they having to front the money up front to keep the operation going to then get paid on the back end. Some of these brands in transparency do not have the distribution in place to support large orders that are going to Amazon. Or if they're done being produced at their respective vendors, suppliers, manufacturers, wherever they may be geographically located, a lot of these brands do not have the distribution to move X number of units on their own. So, an example, if one of these retailers, we'll say hypothetically Walmart, has placed an order for 50,000 units of I'm just say 3 products, a cleanser, a serum, and a moisturizer. Okay, 3 simple products, 50,000, and let's say that's for each products. That's 150,000 units. If you say to boycott and this brand has already invested and given the clearance to the manufacturer to produce 50,000 units of each of these products, remember I said it's 3 products, 150,000 units total for the cleanser, the serum, and the moisturizer. Does the brand have the distribution? Do they have access to the trucks to do a full truckload to move it from their manufacturer facility to the warehouse facility respectfully for the retailer? Or do they even have a warehouse space to accommodate all those units on their own in the event that you boycott these brands and these retailers? It's food for thought, so there's a lot of things at play, and you have to be very strategic, especially when a lot of brands have orders out. They have products already on the road. They have contracts. The contract is the biggest thing. And I tell people, you want to make sure you have an attorney to review your contract and make sure that you are able to fulfill the duration unless there is something that is against, moral code or things of that sort, respectfully for your brand and your company. And if the retailer is willing to let you out the contract, let's be frank, this is an agreement. This is a business transaction. So there's a lot of things at play, with these brands. So yes, what the internet is saying to boycott, I don't see it. Be very strategic about it and really think about if your money was tied up and invested around the creation, development, and launch of the products and the packaging and the distribution, and then paying for shelf space when it does go to market. Think about that, okay? Because these brands have worked years to get there. And so, another thing I've been hearing people say is, well, the brand should only focus on direct to consumer, D2C. And let me say this, I am a huge advocate and for any brand to have a D2C strategy. Always for it. It is nothing like your own ecosystem. I strongly believe that. Even with me as a service provider, this podcast is part of my ecosystem. My email list is part of my ecosystem. And that's my D2C approach for pushing communications, right? So from a product-based business standpoint, yes, every single brand should have a D2C strategy. You should always be thinking about how you can go fish on your own and bring it back for you to eat. Absolutely. So yes, every brand should have a D2C. However, if you are not a social influencer that has tens of millions of followers, already established, that may be a long-term strategy at play. Secondly, going D2C it requires a very diligent and effective marketing strategy that may take a couple of years to fully implement. Now, if you are, if the brand is celebrity owned, influencer, 10 plus $1 million, you have, collaborations with, high profile people or retailers and stuff like that. Yeah, your D2C strategy may be different. But for those independent self-funded brands or those brands that do have funding from, various investors and capitalists, etc. It's going to take them more time because a lot of them are operating as solopreneurs. And if they do have a team, they have a very lean and mighty team. So they're being very agile, in reference of how they think through and operate their business. And some of them are also having to think about cash flow. So D2C is a great avenue. I'm a huge proponent of it because I believe having your own ecosystem, and you should be able to go out, you should be able to know how to fish, go out, fish, and bring it back home to skin it and eat it, and then be able to do it again. I'm a huge proponent of it. That's why I have my company. However, that takes more time, more effort, more capital, more marketing, more visibility, and then displaying it on various platforms like Facebook or Meta, Instagram, which is also another anti-DEI company within this new year. So do you boycott that platform? How do you promote your products if you decide to do so? So there is a big conversation around this, and it's really impacting everything we do. So think about that. D2C, yeah, but if you don't have the celebrity behind you, the PR firm that's really pushing it, or the partnerships and collaborations, things of that sort, it's going to take you more time. So yes, it's advantageous to have a D2C market, but you have to think about what that means and what that looks like. And those few orders means the world to those companies. Okay. So yes, you can, but a lot of them who have D2C that are still on Amazon, Target, Walmart, whether in stores or online e-commerce, they still have contracts. They still have to fulfill X number of units over a specified period of time. If they do not, they get removed and get replaced. So think about everything holistically. Okay. And so as we're thinking about this and also sharing this, on the impact about pulling your products from the stores, to going D2C, if you should boycott, let me say this. At the end of the day, if you are in business, you are in the business of making money, period. Even if you are an employee, you are there to have a common exchange, a business transaction. You are exchanging time for money. At the end of the day, we all need money to survive and pay for everyday living expenses. So from rent to mortgage, to getting to and from destinations, transportation, to buying our basic essentials, food, water, household necessities, etc., to taking care of our families, if it's just you, a significant other or partner, spouse, to children, to some of y'all are caretakers as well. So you're taking care of your family, extended family, from parents, you may have adopted kids, as an aunt, as an uncle, whatever that may look like. Some of us still want to travel because we're so stressed because of everything going on in our environment and in our country. So we all need money. Let's be honest about it. We all need money in order to survive and also pay for the things that we want and need. And so at the end of the day, think about these brands and consider these brands that have really thought about and been intentional about getting into these stores, because they're looking at the growth opportunity. A lot of us are always figuring out, how can we get more awareness? How can we be more recognizable? Regardless if you're an employee or a business owner, right? So if you're an employee, you're thinking about, what can I do at my job to make sure that I stand out, to get recognized more? So if that's employee of the month, employee of the year, to be eligible for a merit increase or a salary increase, or to perform, to hit your quota or over exceed that quota, to get a bonus, you're looking at the opportunity for exponential growth. Product-based businesses that are developing the products, same thing. They are looking at partnerships, collaborations, markets that will help give them the exposure that they need and also that they want, to help elevate their brands on a larger scale outside of the efforts that they may be doing on their direct to consumer D2C sites. Me as a service provider, I am going through the exact same thing as those who are employees and also business owners. I have my podcast to help with awareness of my company itself, but also to highlight and promote other people that work in this industry with me. I have my own press releases that I issue out as part of my push communications. I have my digital trainings to help the startup brands who may not have the capital to work with me one-on-one for fractional services. I'm doing the same thing, and I'm having to leverage multiple modalities to help with exponential the opportunity for exponential growth. So we all are doing the same thing. And so that's why I wanted to put into context, from all angles, because we all are striving for the same thing, regardless of initiatives, mandates, whatever. At the end of the day, we all bleed red. All of our money is green, and we all can be part of the change. And so when you think about the exponential growth, I want to just also share, because I shared with you earlier in this segment how I'm a service provider and the brands I work with, some of the core services and the retailers that are anti-DEI and some that are still for DEI initiatives, respectfully. We are working with the brands to help them get into all of those retailers, depending upon their strategy and their approach. And so if you boycott the stores, it impacts the brands that are already there. It may halt production. So then they may have liability, the things that may have been produced, or if it's already been fulfilled, they may not have the space to accept those things, or going into the big box brands, fulfillment centers and distribution centers. If you boycott them, it ultimately impacts and has a trickle down impact to other service providers. So, as I've mentioned, in thinking about the cycle, you boycott the stores, the brand sales go down. They may have agreements with manufacturers and suppliers and vendors to have orders of X number of units. If they don't fulfill that, they may have a liability, a charge for those aspects. Or if things are already produced and they have to be halted, that's liability costs. So then they have to think about how to dispose them or how they store them to use them or repurpose them for a later time. Then impacts, being able to fulfill orders because sales have declined from this mass market retailer or platform. And then also it impacts the purchase orders because now the purchase orders have gone down because of sales. And even though they have D2C, their D2C strategy may not align or support the quantities that the retailer would have purchased. So remember the 3 products I mentioned, just hypothetically 50,000 units each, 150,000 units, whereas D2C, they may only support just say 5,000. That's a lot of product. And you have to think about the efficacy of beauty products, because I'm in beauty, the efficacy of the beauty products, because they have a period after opening, depending upon if it contains any SPF or over-the-counter drug, OTC. It may have expiration, depending upon the time frame. It could be 2 to 3 years. So those impact, and they have to think about how to move these products fast. Now they could pitch to those retailers and mass market retailers and platforms that do still have DE&I initiatives. But is it time for open call? Is it properly positioned? Does that product align with the audience in these retailers that do still have DE&I initiatives? And then furthermore, us as service providers, as consultants, if all of those things that I just mentioned are impacted, that halts me being able, me and other consultants, to be frank, from regulatory to product development consultants to myself as packaging consultants, project managers, portfolio managers, and more. This will halt our services to work with these brands that we were intentionally working with to help make sure that it's aligning with their efforts and their goals going into these various markets, big box stores. It impacts us. So guys, this is a trickle down impact. And so that's why I'm really encouraging people and those that are listening to think about the full picture. Okay. This can impact all of us. Now, I'm not saying to have all your eggs in one basket. Of course not. As a consultant, I have to diversify my clients, my cash flow, things of that sort. I pay myself a salary, I pay a team, I have overhead expenses, and now I have a child coming. So mama got to eat, right? So as part of that, there's a lot of things that has to be considered. So at the end of the day, I just really want to encourage everybody to, one, don't just focus on the headlines that you're seeing around these things. Let's all take some time to read, to research, to have conversations in the dialogue, see how to support each other. Because at the end of the day, headline is media, it's propaganda. Now, some of it is reality, don't get me wrong. However, there needs to be a little bit more diligence to think about the full strategy and the full impact of these efforts and what this means, to the brands and the companies that you support or you don't support, to even for your everyday necessities, what this means for your household. So think about these things, research it. But at the end of the day, I really just want to encourage everybody to take a moment to breathe, to pause first, breathe. And I feel like in due time, things will eventually not be rocky ground. It will the pavement will smooth out eventually. I do not have a crystal ball. I cannot predict the future. If I could, man, I'd be a millionaire, a multimillionaire at that. Okay. But as part of that, what can we all do to help promote positive change and to be intentional about the efforts that we exhibit and exude in all that we do? So, like I said, this one was a really raw, authentic conversation. It was timely because of some things I've been seeing in reference of, certain narratives and stuff like that that's been pushed for quite a while in transparency. But now in this new year, 2025, I can see the impact in everybody. And like, this is just the beginning, right? And so because this is the beginning, we all are trying to figure out how to navigate the space and what this means for us and more. So I understand, but that's why I wanted to really have this podcast and just be very transparent, because I had to sit with this myself. I had to think about what this means for me as a Black woman who's participated in various programs that have supported DEI initiatives. Like I've done Waste Management Share the Green. I recently graduated from Goldman Sachs 1 Million Black Women in Business. That has really helped me to craft and implement certain practices and procedures into my business. I have supported and received trainings from other Black women, other women-owned companies that may not be Black. I went through Cornell University's women's program, received a certification through that. So like when I think about my own journey and some of the respective grants that I received, programs, accelerators I've been part of, it has really helped me. And if I didn't have access to those, what would that mean for me? What would be the financial impact, if I didn't participate in these programs? And ultimately, how would this have impacted how I operate with the clients, that I have the opportunity to partner with, so it's a lot of things, so I understand the conversation. I'm right there, but at the end of the day, boycott is not the answer. Personally, I feel like you just have to be very strategic in how you patronize the brands. The brands need your support more than ever. So please support them. Please encourage them. Please help promote positive change. That's ultimately what I can say. So with that being shared, we're going to end for today. So I will welcome your thoughts. If you are listening and tuning in, watching the video format, leave me some comments. Let me know your thoughts. What are you seeing? What are you going to do to promote positive change? Now, let me say this too. I'm going to say this, okay, because it's my podcast. Don't leave no negative comments. If you are not about promoting change, positive change, don't leave a comment. Don't leave a rating. Don't do it. We are about promoting and moving with excellence. Okay. So if you cannot do that, just don't comment. Okay. Thank you. From management. If you are willing to be part of the conversation, exchange dialogue that is healthy and it's going to be positive, I'm all for it. I'm all for having a conversation. So I encourage you to leave a comment. But don't come on my platform thinking that you can just say any and everything and I'm not going to respond, because I will quickly delete you and your comment and all of that, because this is mine. Okay. But I do want us to really be intentional about how we move, and let's promote positive change, because at the end of the day, we all need this positive change, especially in the days ahead. So thank y'all so much for tuning into today's podcast right here on the Product and Packaging Powerhouse. Make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe to all of our respective platforms. And I look forward to having some dialogue with you all on some positive change, in reference of the conversation I had with you all for today. So thank y'all so much. Make sure you do check out our other episodes with other featured powerhouses on various contents and topics, because they all coincide with what I mentioned. And even like I mentioned, impacts us as service providers, which I have a lot of service providers that are featured on the podcast. So thank y'all so much. Make sure you do check out our upcoming episodes, and make sure you do follow, like, and subscribe so you get notification of when we drop our next episode. So thank y'all so much, and talk to you on the next one.